behold how I play this moderate hidden PS1 gem, Silent Bomber. In this video, I will be going over how to get DuckStation, my settings for resolution, PGXP geometry correction, frame rate, widescreen, and lossless scaling frame generation. Remember, this is just how I play. I'm not claiming it's the best way to play, nor the way you should play. So take what you like and disregard what you don't. And also, I do not claim to be the guru of emulation. There will be decisions I make that you think are suboptimal. Just take it all with a grain of salt. If you'd like to support the channel, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Check out my Linktree, potentially join my Patreon, or look at my other social media profiles. And that's it. Let's get into it. How I play Silent Bomber. Alrighty then, the first thing that you're gonna do is go to duckstation.org. It's gonna look just like this. Whatever platform you have, I have Windows, I'm gonna click that, I'm gonna download it, I'm gonna unzip it and install it wherever you want. Now, once you install it, the folder is going to look like this. You wanna click on DuckStation-QT. That's the version that has a GUI, a graphic user interface. When you open it up, it's gonna look like this. You're probably not gonna see any games initially. That's very simple. Go to System, Settings, Game List. It's going to bring this up, and right here you can set where you want your games to be. So wherever your Silent Bomber game or any other games are, wherever you want to keep them, just set this here, then click rescan all games, and all your games will show up. The other thing that you're going to do is you have to have a BIOS or BIOS file. I cannot tell you where to get that, but it's very easy. Just look it up. Once you get that done, go to Settings, Folders, and hit BIOS. And the same thing right here. Under DuckStation, we'll search for BIOS images in this directory. You can browse and set it to wherever you want. Wherever this is set by default, or change it somewhere where you want custom, put your BIOS file in there, then hit the refresh button, and then everything will work correctly. Once that's done, you're gonna come down to your game, Silent Bomber. Where are you? I'm blind, right here. And once we click it, here we are, we're playing around. Now, I have my controller already set up. If you're playing for the very first time and you have not mapped your controllers, go to Settings, Controllers, click on Controller Port 1, pick the type of PlayStation controller you'd like to emulate. I almost always choose analog controller. Then click on your D-pad, press up on your controller, left here, right here, down here, and just map everything, and you're good to go. Now, I'm playing around. Now, the next thing that I'm gonna do is the native resolution of 320 by 224 on a modern screen that's not a CRT is going to look really pixelated. So I'm going to go to Settings, Graphics, and under the Rendering tab, Internal Resolution, I turn it all the way to 12x, which is slightly above 4K because not every base resolution is going to be proper 4K, and I have a good enough GPU to handle it. It's called super sampling, helps with aliasing. It labels 9x for 4K, but if you look at the resolution for 9x, it's 2880 by 2016. That's actually not quite 4K. This is just a guess because lots of games have different base resolutions. So normally I hit it to 12x. That puts me at 3840 by 2688. That is closer to proper 4K. And here we go. Now I'm playing in 4K. The next thing that you're going to notice is the original aspect ratio is not what we're used to. Some people like it, but if you don't like it, go to Settings, Graphics, Rendering, Aspect Ratio. I like to do 20 by 9 because I like the widescreen. Not all PS1 games can do it because they don't render geometry that far out, but Silent Bomber does for the most part. So I'm going to hit 20 by 9 and make sure that I check the widescreen. If I don't check this widescreen rendering hack, it's going to stretch everything. I check that, everything looks good. Now I'm playing in 20 by 9 widescreen, and you'll see a little bit of pop in, not too bad. If that bothers you, just switch it down to 16 by 9. Now the next thing you're going to notice is some people like the PS1 wobble that you can see here in the shimmer and how it, kind of up here right next to this wall. See how it shimmers and wobbles and texture seams break in and out. Some people like that, some people don't. I prefer to fix it. We can fix it. Go to Settings, Graphics, and under the Rendering tab, check PGXP, geometry correction. Do not check depth buffer. For some games that works. For 80-90% of the games, this is going to cause problems. And then under the PGXP tab, I check everything but vertex cache, and CPU mode. Now, CPU mode and vertex cache can fix some things here and there. It's game specific. DuckStation will tell you if this game needs it or not. It's not always right, so just experiment yourself. If you're still seeing things that are not quite fixed, you can play with CPU mode, play with vertex cache. So here you go. Now the geometry is much more stable. We still get a little pop in right here, for example. CPU mode. No, didn't quite fix it. Vertex cache. Didn't quite fix it. Depth buffer, and look at that. So again, let's take the depth buffer off. You can see that this geometry is clipping and not looking right. Put it back on. Now it's looking. Now the depth buffer, as I mentioned, can cause other problems. Like if you look at the shadow right here, it's breaking. If I turn the depth buffer off, the shadow looks correct. So you kind of have to choose which options are the best. Every game's a little bit different, but those are the things that you're going to play with. Now it's looking really solid. Loving it. All right, the last step is getting this game to run in 60 FPS. I'm going to go over a couple things that don't work for this game, but sometimes work for other games, just so you're aware of them. Really only one thing. Sometimes you can go to settings, emulation, console, and you can enable clock speed control, which overclocks the emulated CPU. So I already have it set to 200%. I can go all the way up to 1000%, and you'll see here under G, this is the frame rate of the game, and this is the frame rate of the display, but the game's still only running at 30 frames a second, no matter how much I overclock the CPU. So I just put it at 200%, which maybe helps me maintain a stable frame rate, because this game does have some slowdown with lots of explosions. But unfortunately, we can't do that for 60 frames a second, and a lot of times that speeds the game up anyway, so it works occasionally. Just want you to be aware of that. So the next thing that we can do is we can get a mock 60 FPS by opening up Steam. There's a program called Lossless Scaling. At the time I bought it, it was $6, I think. It's pretty cheap. I'm going to launch it. It's very, very simple. I'm going to set my frame generation to 3.0. That's the newest one, and only 2x. You might be tempted to go to x4, but I have found that x4 only works if the game is 60 FPS and you want to go to like 120, 144. 30 FPS to 60, I do x2. Otherwise, you get lots of weird aliasing and like warping issues. And all you have to do is make sure that you're running your game in windowed mode, not exclusive full screen. Otherwise, lossless scaling will not detect it, which took me forever to figure out. So save yourself some time. And oops, that's the wrong lossless scaling tab. Simply hit scale and then come back over to your game. Now my game is running in 60 FPS. There's one problem. My recording software, OBS, does not pick up the generated frames on display, because it's a different window and it's not really on your display. I've gone down this rabbit hole 1,000 times. If any of you have any advice, normally what I do is I set up a new window on OBS and then capture that window on top of the display and then merge those two together, and I can get the extra frames. But I couldn't get that to work with the new Windows update. So what I've done is I've interpolated the footage that you're watching to let you see what it looks like with lossless scaling. But unfortunately, I can't show you in real time with the way that OBS captures lossless scaling frames until I figure it out. But either way, what this does is this gives you interpolation, which in my opinion looks pretty good. You will see occasional, little warpings here and there. Under the hood, the game is still running at 30 FPS, but it gives you that smoother 60 FPS look, should you so desire. All right, and the actual last thing that I do is I have this weird fetish of combining modern stuff, such as high resolution PGXP and lossless scaling, with a retro CRT filter. I think the combining of the two is really cool. So just do this only if you want to. This is a total subjective style thing, but DuckStation has some built-in CRT filters, and you could inject reshade if you want more options, but I don't think it's really needed, as DuckStation has some pretty good CRT filters built in already. Go to settings, post-processing, click enable post-processing. Now I already have my CRT filters set up. I use CRT lots, and I have some adjustments here, and I stack that with CRT guest HD. I like to have the kind of the barrel distortion warping going on, and this is just a cool way to add a little bit of a retro flair on top of it. Again, if you don't want to do it, then don't do it, but I like it. And that's it. That is how I play silent bomber. And remember to share the good news of the gaming gospel, and ye shall be blessed. I say these things in the name of Miyamoto the Father, Kojima the Son, and Carmack the Holy Ghost. Amen. And enjoy the comparison shots and enjoy the gameplay footage. Bye-bye!
Finish this guy off! You just signed your death warrant! You're dead! Count on it!
Picking up a high-level energy signature ahead. It's gonna fire. Get out of there. Lieutenant, come in. They've been shot down.
That's my Utah.
Benoit?
I was watching you fight, observing the man in action. You truly do belong on a battlefield.
What is that supposed to mean?
You'll find out eventually. We'll meet again.
What? You're telling me that
Come in, Utah! Do you read me? Utah! Utah!
You don't have to scream, I can hear you. You should have contacted me immediately.
Now look here! We had our hands full shaking off enemy units in a ship that's shot full of holes!
All I want from you is a status report, not a sob story.
Every assault team except for us has been wiped out. I've lost contact with Benoit, too. Tim and John are repairing the lander. Meanwhile, Machino and I are attempting to hack into their system.
In order to pull that off, the system would have to be temporarily distracted. That's where my expertise comes in, right?